And hi, my name is Michael Varhola with Skirmisher Publishing and D-Infinity Online. And I'd like to welcome anyone who's watching this to join us for the next segment of our In the Footsteps of Hercules live play 5th edition D&D adventure. So this adventure is using a universal source book that we developed, that many of the people that you're looking at here helped develop and have been playtesting. And we are playing a 5th edition D&D game using that universal source book. And it is set in a Dark Ages version of Greece. A Dark Ages fantasy version of Greece. So when we pick up today, it's going to be in a city called Nafplion. That's a real city, and we're looking at an image of it behind me from the hill that rises up behind the city. And that is where our characters are going to be beginning. So I'll give a brief introduction that tells how they got here and how long they're going to be here and where they're going to be going when they're done. And then it will be their game. But before I do that, we're going to have each person introduce themselves and their characters very briefly, and then we will move straight into the game. So Brenda, why don't you start off, please?
I am playing Abderos. Abderos is a Foen native and a monk dedicated to Hermes and Odious. That's the travel aspect of Hermes.
Get down. Perfect.
Oh, boy.
And he protects travelers from vicious cats on desks.
She is really dreadful. And as soon as we went live, that was it, man. She started clawing at me. Penny, go ahead.
I'm playing Deianira. She's an Amazon from Scythia, and she is a ranger and an ex-soldier and horsewoman, and she is here to see the sights.
That's perfect. She's in the right place for it. Amanda?
I'm playing Vafea. She's a dyer, and for her character class, it's our skirmisher's own expert class. So she's a tradeswoman and knows a lot of practical skills and is kind of geared toward practical skills and practical spellcasting.
Perfect. Paul?
So I'm Chaz. Chaz is a satyr. He's a druid and a bard, mostly a druid. And right now he's just looking for a tavern where he can settle in and be a satyr again.
Just let satyrs be satyrs. And Dad?
So I am Eumeos, a semi-retired soldier from the island of Kos. And I'm a peltast. So I'm always seen with my foxskin cap. I currently am also a swineherd, but right now, because I'm a little old and getting tired, I'm just kicking back in Nafplion, enjoying a glass of wine and wandering the narrow streets of the old city.
All right. Well, for the last couple of months, just to recap what led us to this point, for the last couple of months, your party has been traveling through the northern Peloponnese. And the Peloponnese is the large peninsula at the western end of mainland Greece. And you've been following in the footsteps of Hercules. You've been following the route that Hercules took as he performed his labors on mainland Greece. So that took you from the, many of you came into Nafplion. And the town of Tiryns, the pilgrimage town, is just 2 or 3 miles to the north. So many of you started your pilgrimage in Tiryns, and then you went counterclockwise around the northern half of the Peloponnese. Most recently, you were in Lerna, which is just about 11 miles by land to the west, rescuing a doctor from the Asclepion of Lerna, from the hospital that's established there. So that was your most recent adventure. That's what we did in our last couple of sessions. And once you returned the doctor to the hospital gratefully bought you passage on the little supply ship that runs back and forth every day between the hospital and the port of Nafplion. You got on the late afternoon supply packet that was running back across the bay. It's only 5 miles by sea. So when we begin, You have come into Nafplion. You've seen that the city is established on a rocky promontory that's about a half-mile long that juts out into the Gulf of Argos. You see that it is completely walled. It is a walled and fortified city. It's got a castle on an island out in the middle of the bay, which people can see behind me here. At the southern end, it has an acropolis with an ancient fortress on it. And then beyond that, it is a bustling seaport that has ships coming and going, that has shipyards and warehouses, people from many, many different foreign lands. You see a lot of North Africans, people from elsewhere in Europe, Romans, so people from all over the place wandering the streets, of this city. The city is especially busy, and you find out when you go to an inn and rent a couple of rooms for your party that the Midsummer Festival, there's an annual festival of arts and entertainment that the city sponsors every year. That's coming up in about 4 days. And you also find out that you've got a week that you need to spend in the city before you can go on to Crete, because in our last session, you resolved that you were going to go to Crete and visit the ancient bullpens of Knossos and see the bull dancing ceremony that takes place there. And that all ties in with what Hercules did. He went to Crete, he went to Knossos, he captured one of these bulls, he brought it back to Greece. So that has seemed to you to be the natural next thing to do in your pilgrimage. So you get to Nafplion, you rent rooms for a week, which are costing about twice as much as they normally would because people are coming in for the festival. So everything's at a premium. You've got a full week, like I said, before a ship goes directly to Crete, because not a lot of ships go to Crete. Crete has kind of an ominous reputation. It suffered more than a lot of countries in the Great Cataclysm that hit 100 years before, because it was so near to Thera, so near to the volcano that erupted and really destroyed everything in the whole Aegean basin. So it's recovered, it's a kingdom now, but not a lot of people go there for whatever reasons. But there is a ship going in a week, and you are planning on being on it. So when we begin, you've been directed by the person who runs your inn to a large tavern near the waterfront. It is packed with people. There are a couple of hundred people packed into this large tavern, and there is live entertainment going on when you get in there. For whatever reasons, someone is giving a skit when you get in there. 2 or 3 people are giving a skit. Now someone is singing. Before long, a huge plate of fried anchovies and a trencher of bread and a huge dish of salad and a flagon of wine all get put down in front of your characters, and you were able to start munching and listening to the music and deciding what you're going to do for the next week. So this is an interlude. This is the opportunity for your characters to do anything you might have wanted to do. You can ask questions about the city. You can try to close the loop on things you'd heard about, but don't necessarily that you're still wondering about. You can go off on a little side adventure. You can try to craft something. You can buy anything that you've needed. This is your character's opportunity. We can dispense with what your character does in a few sentences, or we can take the time to individually go through what your characters might want to do. So when we begin, you're sitting in a tavern, a flagon of wine has been put down in front of you, and then all of a sudden, another flagon of wine gets put down in front of you, and you see some familiar faces on the other side of the tavern, the 3 widows who you have encountered in your pilgrimage, waving to you excitedly and pointing toward the second flagon of wine that they just had sent over to you as a gesture of goodwill. So your cups are full, you've got food, there is the joyful chaos, semi-organized chaos of the city going and tavern going on around you. And why don't you discuss amongst yourselves and with me what your characters are planning on doing for the next week? It can just be dissipation and hanging out on the waterfront and drinking and visiting the other establishments that are there, or it can be something that you find more meaningful or pertinent. this.
Anybody? Anybody?
The party continues to munch their bread,
Look,
anchovies, salad, and
They're
wine.
really good anchovies, okay?
Fine,
So-
you bastards. Make perception checks. If this is
Oh,
the way it
no.
has to go.
Wait, I was going to
Abderos.
say,
Yes.
go ahead, Brenda.
Go ahead.
Okay, Abderos it needs to figure out how to incubate his lizard eggs.
Oh no.
Now, if I am recalling correctly, you were making a reference to the 4 eggs that you took from the lizard folk mound in your last
Right.
adventure, and which you believe to be the eggs of lizard folk.
Yes, so that I can raise the little lizard folks as monks dedicated to Hermes Enodius.
Okay, so one of the things you're going to attempt to accomplish during this week is figuring out how you're going to do that.
Right. And so if chickens work for small eggs, then I just need a large bird for the lizard folk eggs.
Okay. All right. So, and this is all in the context of your character sitting around a table in a noisy tavern, munching and
Yes.
discussing this.
Right.
All right. So, in practice, when you leave Nafplion in a week, how are you envisioning these eggs being cared for?
Well, I don't know if there's such a thing as ostrich farms.
That's a good question. Is there such a thing as ostrich farms?
Like not, right?
Well, there are, you've noticed more North Africans, Egyptians,
Yeah.
Libyans, just since you've gotten here. So obviously it's a little condescending to walk up to someone and say, my friend, you look swarthier than most. Tell me about ostrich farms. So you have to be a little more
Don't do that.
circumspect than that. But there is obviously a presence from North Africa in this town. It's obviously a trading point. So you might be able to get information on that sort of thing. Your character's obviously heard of ostriches or big birds. So yeah, this might be a good place to try to seek information like that. So should we assume that's one of the things Avros will be doing this week, trying to seek out information about?
Although, what are we going to do if those eggs take longer than a week to incubate?
Well, they will take longer than a week to incubate. This is just him laying the groundwork for this, and then we'll pick the thread.
No, I don't think you understand. The ostriches are getting purchased and coming with me in order to incubate the eggs.
How are you gonna
I'm
stop them from
sorry.
eating- How are you going to stop them from eating the eggs?
I was misunderstanding you.
Wouldn't it be easier to find dire chickens than an ostrich?
I'm good with dire chickens too.
I
Because
think
the eggs need to be incubated at all. Lizard eggs usually aren't incubated.
Oh, I didn't
that's
know
a-
that about lizard eggs.
That's a great point.
No, they're not very good
They
mothers.
just-
They just lay their eggs and go away.
They just
Oh,
sit-
so my
they just
lizard
sit
eggs
out.
don't need to be. See, this is why I'm glad I brought it up at the dinner table, because otherwise I would have gone and bought a bunch of ostriches and I wouldn't need them at all.
You just
Oh.
need to keep them somewhere safe and
So
relatively
they just
warm.
have to stay safe.
Right.
Yeah.
In which case, I need armored egg carriers. That's what I'm going to get made.
But what you need is a bucket of sand.
I can buy buckets of sand.
Yeah.
Maybe a little cart to put it all in so that you can carry them with you.
Now, so as an adventurer, you're planning on actually traveling with like a cart that has buckets of sand in it and to have sort of a mobile egg incubatory with you, or you're planning on finding, establishing some sort of contact here in Nafplion and leaving the eggs so that you can return at a later date.
I'm not going to abandon my duty to these adopted children. Okay?
I'm not suggesting you abandon your duty. I'm trying to figure out.
And as absurd as you make that sound, it's only until they hatch. It's no big deal.
Okay. And then you would be planning on adventuring with these infant lizard folk?
That's how they learn. They're lizards. They grow up quicker than people.
All right. So the party will certainly have to discuss the implications of you adding this element to the adventuring party. I think traditionally the way these things have done is characters set aside resources so that these side projects of theirs just sort of keep happening somewhere that isn't in the forefront of every ongoing adventure, especially because that often tragically leads to infant lizard folk being eaten by the next thing that you meet. But that's fine. Think about how you want to handle that.
How big are the eggs?
I don't know. How big would a lizard folk egg be? Probably like an ostrich egg.
And how many are there?
4.
4.
You carried away 1 for each of the characters that was involved
Right.
that foray into the lizard folk lair.
Okay. I'm
Maybe
looking.
Barrel of manure, because that way, as it decays, the bacterial action will create heat and keep them warm, and it'll be.
But we don't need
packed
to
in a
keep them
barrel.
warm.
Then
That's what we learned.
This is Greece in the summer. It's warm.
either way, I think a barrel's the way to go,
Okay, barrel. Got it.
because we could roll
well,
it.
Funny, you're in a port town that specializes in shipping. There are barrel makers. You have seen cooperages just since you got here. So there are barrel makers all along the waterfront. It's easy to find barrels.
Why a barrel?
Because you could roll it.
You don't want to roll the lizard eggs, and you'll have scrambled lizard.
I don't see that. I don't see a downside there.
Aha. I do
Right.
sense an ulterior motive here.
Well, there are no cooperages that are open right now because it's something like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it's gotten dark. And but you know where there are some. It's going to be easy enough to find a barrel maker or an amphora maker or a cart maker. Any of these appurtenances that you might want to support this venture are going to be easily obtainable here in the city. So
Sounds good.
there are probably few cities as ideal for such a half-ass side quest as this one. So you're not having it. All right. Well, I think that is a worthy quest. So the next day, your character can certainly.
Sounds like you think it's worthy.
In that, you know what? I will tell you. In that you completely caught me off guard, and I did not see where that was going. That gets your point, and it makes it worthy. So,
Okay.
yes, Penny.
Deianira is looking for a way to make a little coin because she's kind of broke. So,
Well, who are you asking about that? I mean,
she's just sort of keeping her eyes and ears open.
well, there are a lot of street entertainers, and there's a lot of live entertainment going on. And there are, of course, being coins flung onto the little stage here in the tavern for the people who put on their little skits. You don't know why there's so much live entertainment, but there's just a lot of it. There's, it goes from a song to a skit to somebody telling a ballad. So there's a lot going on. So you could try to turn yourself into a street entertainer.
Hey, could she do trick riding?
What's that?
Can she do trick riding? Like rodeo trick riding type things?
That's kind of what she does.
Shooting from underneath the horse's neck and targets and riding standing up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So once again, we're sitting around at our dinner table discussing this. When and where and how are you looking at making a public spectacle of yourself in this way? You're just finding like a square where there isn't any other entertainment going on and cantering around in the square and standing on the back of your horse and shooting arrows at things and just sort of seeing if, passersby respond?
Either that or I would be arrested.
There's
for
a lot,
shooting.
saw a lot of stuff going on out in the streets. So
Chaz is happy to assist. He's, he used to run with a troupe of traveling entertainers, and could probably, drum up business and pass the hat and do all those sorts of things.
I would probably look for an existing troupe to say, hey, can I join in for a day or two and I'll split the profits with you?
Well, there's a lot of entertainers
There you go.
because so many have been coming into town for the festival, and they're all types and all levels of quality. Some of them are clearly not going to be actually participating in the festival, and they're just there to sort of tap into the the overall vibe of everything that's going on. Whereas others, are obviously more professional, and probably a lot of these skits and songs are them sort of like previewing stuff they're going to be doing in competition in 4 days. So, but yes, certainly, if that's one of the things that you want to do, finding a troupe and joining them, or just doing any of it on your own, yeah, that sounds like a good way to maybe drum up a little bit of cash over the next few days. And you're muted.
Enough to pay for drinks and hotel anyway.
Yeah, well, as Brenda very artfully puts it, at this point you have story money. You have as much money as you need for us to tell the story that we want to tell. Looking into the future, you sense that you've marshaled your resources and your community war chest well enough that you'll have enough to do everything you need to do in Nafplion, that you're going to be able to pay the expensive passage to Crete and do everything you need to do in Crete, that you'll be able to make it back and go down to Cape Matapan at the southern end, the southernmost point in Greece, and visit the cave that's the entry to the underworld that Hercules went through. And by the time you get done with that and have completed everything that you can do for the pilgrimage, you'll realize you're completely broken. You'll have to consider your options. So that's kind of, you get a portent into the future, Dayanara. That's pretty much how it's going to go. You're going to have as much money as we want you to have until you're done with the last part of this adventure. And then suddenly you're going to realize that you're completely broken. You're going to have to consider what comes next.
All right.
That is the Swords and Sorcery foreordination. You can't really escape it. So don't even try. But but that is fine. Do you have any idea what you're going to be up to for the next week, Vafea?
So Vafea is going to look for the local Dyers Guild, even if that includes just one person, and kind of see if they'd be willing to let me crash in their shop, and we can swap techniques and just kind of hang out and share knowledge and that sort of thing.
So you're looking at spending a week just trying to fall back on being a dyer and have a little bit of normal.
Yeah, little bit of professional development.
Okay, that sounds like a really good idea. Yeah. Okay. Well, consider where you would get information about these things. But this is a big mercantile town. There's going to be a guild house that either represents your Dyer's Guild or can direct you to it or whatever. And we can role play out you asking questions in appropriate places. So, Eumeos, do you have any particular plans for the week ahead of you, or is it pretty much just R&R?
Yeah, for him, it's just R&R. He's tired. It's been a long trip. He's happy to lay around, eat some seafood, enjoy the Retsina.
Yep.
He's easy.
That is all easily done. And actually, Retsina is easily gotten here because Retsina is especially developed for the export trade. So there's plenty of Retsina because all the Retsina that's going out of the Argolid, which is the region that you're in, has to go out through Nafplion. So Retsina is easily found in its resin-lined pine barrels. So you have no problem fulfilling any of those needs at all. And if any, during the days when you're hanging out with any of the other characters, you can always say that you want to be with them while they're fulfilling something that they're doing, if you want to give them an assist or just, keep an eye on them or whatever. So what about you, Chaz, Paul? What is our satyr entertainer up to?
So I think, Chaz will, so he'll spend most of his days boozing, but he's going to find out what the deal is with this festival. Is there a contest, any competitions, something where he can make himself known a little better as a bard and entertainer.
Uh, yeah, there very well might be. We're here at an environment where there are lots of people around. You want to try asking anybody a question?
Sure. Maybe I'll start with the three widows, since we know them. Maybe they've met somebody.
Okay.
And, you know, they were completely right about the dragon in the orchard, so
That's
they may
true.
well.
In the apple orchard of the Hesperides, they absolutely were right about that. They led you unerringly to that, as a matter of fact.
They did.
So,
I fought a dragon.
Okay. Well, then you can sort of beckon to the widows, and they will sort of work their way through the tavern and come over to your table. And I'm not going to actually have anyone make perception checks because the best of you will make them, and the worst of you either won't and won't get the information I want you to have, or you will eventually make them. But all or most of you notice people will look at you. You know, Dianara is an Amazon, so she's dressed outlandishly. So people will look at her. Chaz isn't even human. He's a goat man. And you see plenty of people, just like being at a convention, plenty of people looking to try to figure out, is this a costume? How did he do that? So a lot of people are looking at Chaz in particular. A lot of people are looking at Dianara in particular. The rest of you are more traditional in your garb and your appearance and get fewer looks. But collectively, your party notices that there are three people in a corner at the other end of the tavern, two young men and a young woman. And I say young, late teens, early 20s. And they have all been watching you and talking about you. So the widows make it over to your table and they're laughing and they're half in the bag because they get through things by drinking like so many people do. And they sort of clamber around your table. One of you stands up and gives them a seat, and they grab a seat that somebody else abandoned for a minute, and you're all jammed around this table now, the 8 of you. So it's you and the 3 widows, but you notice these other 3 people, these young people who are watching and talking about you and seem apprehensive, concerned. They're talking about you, they're watching you, but that's it up to this point. The widows have heard about the festival, Chaz. They don't know that much about it. They've gotten here just recently. They're from Epidaurus, which is a city to the east, and they're getting ready to head home. They've done all they're going to do with their pilgrimage. They can't afford to sail to Crete. It's too expensive. And the last leg, going down to Cape Matapan and visiting the entry to the underworld, their sense is death will come soon enough. They don't need to add a memory of it to their pilgrimage. And that's the attitude of a lot of pilgrims. So many pilgrims can't afford to go to Crete, and Crete is dangerous and a long ways away. And many just opt not to go to Cape Matapan and the entry to the underworld. So they say that they're going to stick around for the festival. They'll see you for the next 4 or 5 days, and then they're heading home to Epidaurus. But you're always welcome there, and you should come visit anytime.
Good to know. Is there a highlight to this festival?
Well, they don't know, but
Okay.
maybe you could ask somebody else. There's a barmaid who keeps coming over and checking your flagon. You're in a tavern full of people. There's entertainers up on the stage coming and going. There's people watching you surreptitiously from a corner. So.
All right. Well, the
These,
people in the corner sound promising.
These ones in the corner, do they have any resemblance to that? Who are those kids that we kept running into that were giving us trouble?
The
Like,
Harpaistum players.
The Harpaistum players. No, the Harpaistum players were young Spartans.
Oh, all right.
And they don't bear any resentment. As a matter of fact, as far as young people go, they look as unlike the Harpaistum players as they could and still be the from the same general culture and age group. They don't look like the Harpaistum players at all. Longer hair, more irregular beard growth, facial hair growth on the men, sort of shabbier clothes. They don't look like the Harpaistum players at all.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's. Maybe we should talk to them.
Go, you go right ahead, Chaz.
Go for it.
Okay. Is there? So I will slip out the door.
You leave the.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave, and then I'm gonna cast disguise self on myself.
Aha! All
'Cause
right.
I'm a bard.
All right.
And
Very
I'm
clever.
gonna go for maybe a 20s gothy look, kind of unkempt with shabby clothes.
Oh, like sort
Like
of
that.
like the three people you're about to approach.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah, they are very emo. Not
Okay.
goth, but emo for sure.
Emo. Okay. Then I will slip back in and
Nobody pays you any mind at all.
pick up a pitcher and carry it over to that table.
Oh, they sort of look up at you, and you've done so much to emulate their appearance that they're a little bit taken aback, and they're looking at you like, "Oh, do we know you?" So they look up when they get to you, maybe even a little irritatedly because they keep looking over at the party, and they seem a little bit more agitated now for some reason.
Chaz is missing.
I feel like I know you or should know you.
Are you at the Academy of Theater? We're students there. Are you studying there as well?
Oh, the academy here. No, I'm from the academy in Athens.
Oh, they
I
look.
traveled down for the festival.
Oh, they look
And-
really excited. Oh, well, we're participating in the festival. Yes, we're putting on a play, and they're sort of like. And then one says, "Well, maybe we're putting on a play." Yes, well, we are putting on a play. It's just a matter of what play. And the one
Sounds
says,
like you're missing somebody. Are you missing a player? Because I'm a player.
they look up at you and they say, "Are you a writer? Do you have a story? We're missing a script. We have plenty of players. Everyone wants to be an actor. Everyone wants to be a singer. We need a script." And this is all three of them just sort of talking alternately. So many people are trying to do something, a spin on a traditional play, The Birds, or something from the Oedipus cycle. But if we're going to win the drama competition this year, and our grade is dependent on how well we do, if we're going to do well and get a good grade and put on a good play, well, we need to do something different. We don't want to fall back on some old chestnut. We need an original play. And we saw this satyr over here, and who knows drama better than satyrs? They invented it, right? So we were hoping we could get some pointers from him. And this eclectic group that he's with, they've just come in from some foreign land. They must have stories. We're hoping to approach them and get them to help us develop a script for a play. And then we can get our actors and us to direct and put it on for the festival in 4 days.
So at the end of that, Chaz will drop disguise self, use prestidigitation to create sparks and sounds, and say, "You don't have to meet the party. The party's met you."
They kind of fall back a bit, and they're like, "By the gods, by Dionysus himself," and they almost grovel a little bit before you, and they say, "No offense, Master Satyr, we didn't mean to be quite so outspoken. Had we known it was you, blah blah blah." But clearly, you have no sense that they're in any way being disingenuous. They're students who have a project that they're behind on because they've been goofing off all semester, and now they're about to get a grade, and they need to pull something special out of the air to be able to distinguish themselves. And they know all about the festival, and if you have any questions on it, they're the ones that can tell you.
Okay. At this point, I'll invite them over to our table.
Oh, well, it's a party now. You push 3 tables together, and
Right.
you've got benches and chairs all around them, and flagons of wine keep appearing, and coins keep getting dispensed, and the students bring their cups with them. You asked if there was anything special going on with the festival this year. Well, every year there are competitions for everything. There's drama, that's going to be on one day. There's song, there's ballad, there's dance. So every kind of conceivable art is going to be judged by panels of judges. Experts and luminaries are coming in from Athens and Corinth and all around the Aegean. So every kind of competition is going to be going on. But one thing that is special is that this year, the King of Crete has offered a substantial prize and a special dance competition. So the King of Crete, or I guess it's the regular dance competition, but the King of Crete has sponsored the dance competition at the Nafplion Arts Festival this year. And in a way, this makes sense. They don't have festivals like this in Crete because Crete is so far off the beaten path and it's so dangerous. People don't go to Crete for festivals. But the king has sponsored a dance competition, or the dance competition, at the festival this year, and offered some substantial prize. There's going to be some very fine prize for whoever wins the dance competition, which is being sponsored by the king of Crete. So they're excited by that, and that's such a big deal. They would be participating in it, but they're not going to get graded on dance. They're going to get graded on drama.
Okay, well, Chaz is happy to help them with their play, and will independently develop a dance setup for this competition.
You're going to enter the dance competition.
Yeah, well, he's a satyr. That's what he does, right? Drink, ecstatic dance, frenzy, chaos.
That's true. Yeah, right, yeah. No, they caper around and whatnot. So the students now are sort of selectively asking questions and taking notes and trying to, you can tell they're trying to come up with a storyline, and they're trying to figure out which of you, Abderos, or Deianira, or Vathea, Eumaeus, Chaz, most importantly, which of you they can draw into collaborating on the script. And they're looking for a story. They want something that feels authentic and is going to resonate with a crowd. So the extent to which you want to be part of that is completely up to you. The door is open, so I'll just leave it to you to tell me the extent to which you want to be part of that. But they're from Nafplion, or they're from the Argolid, and have come to Nafplion for the academy here. So they're good for information of various sorts. It's a good contact for you to have.
Is there an athletic part of this festival?
Yeah, there always is. It's something like the Olympic Games. The athletics are going to be the main thing, and arts are going to be secondary. It's just like a convention that you would go to. There's always going to be gaming. There's always going to be cosplay. There's always going to be panels. There's always going to be celebrities. It's just a matter of what proportion those things are in. So at this one, there's a bigger proportion of arts and entertainment and less physical kind of activities. But yes, there's going to be chariot race, horse race, foot race with armor, wrestling, all of that.
Javelin throwing.
Javelin throwing, yes, javelin throwing.
Archery.
All of it. It's all going to be taking place, and there are going to be criers that you can go to and get information from, and different events are going to be held at different days at different parts of the city. You learn that Nafplion is on a half-mile-long rocky promontory. The south end of the promontory has some open fields. A lot of activities will be taking place there. The whole inland side of Nafplion is surrounded by marshes, but just outside the eastern gates, beneath the hill called the Palamedes, is a big market area. So there are going to be a lot of activities there. And then the main square where the guild hall is and the town hall is, the main square has stages set up, and a lot of the big competitions will be taking place on stages in the main square. And then all the little squares throughout town are going to get co-opted by unofficial events. So there's always going to be plays and skits and singing and dancing going on. So the whole city is just, every open space has been co-opted for various things. But yeah, any activity you want to do, and we don't have to write out a schedule. We don't even necessarily have to know the day that you're doing it. Any of these things that you want to try to participate in, you can go in and just as somebody, you could say, I'm Eumeos of Kos, I'm a retired soldier, and they'll say, oh, well, here, you can sign up and you can take part in the javelin throwing in your age group. And, you know, if you do okay, then you're not going to advance. And if you do really well, then you might advance. Most people are not going to advance and be the winner of the dance competition or the javelin throwing competition or whatever, because it's so competitive. But anybody who wants to compete can at least do a trial and then see if they can advance to actual competition. And that's all what's going to be going on over the next 4 or 5 days of the city. So yeah, any of those things that your characters want to participate in, you can attempt. Most people don't participate in these things. 95% of the people that come to the city come to watch the competitions. They don't come to participate in the competitions. So, but you can certainly participate in them if you want. So.
All right, I will take part in whatever athletics I can qualify for.
Okay. Yeah, there's going to be something. There's going to be horse racing, if you want to do that, assuming you want to do something with a horse. They're not going to be doing archery from the saddle or anything like that as part of the competition, because that's barbaric. So that's not the kind of stuff that they do. Riding a horse is one thing. Doing all sorts of unsavory things from the back of a horse is another. So that's the kind of thing you would do back on the steppes, back in Scythia, back in Amazonia. They're not going to be doing any of that here. But horse racing, there will be some of that, to be sure. Yeah. And if you're interested, Abdros, there'll be pancration competitions as well. So if you want to take part in bare knuckle wrestling and fisticuffs,
sure,
there is that. So, is anyone, and I'm not pushing you at all, Chaz has expressed an interest in helping these hapless students. Is anybody else going to be participating in the storytelling? Because I want to know the story that you're going to help guide them to write. They'll take any help they can get. They'll accept any help from you short of flat out having you do it for them, because then they would be disqualified for cheating.
Chaz doesn't mind seeding that part and just focusing on the dance. Because honestly, some of the people in this group have probably traveled a little more than Chaz and may have better stories.
Well, this is all possible. You'll do better on the dance competition if you focus just on it anyway.
Okay.
I mean, the fewer things you're doing, the better you do at those things. So if you're splitting your efforts between working with them over the next couple of days or working on your dance. So tell me about your dance. What is this?
Well, so it's going to be a jazz, ballet, hip hop fusion mix.
So a Dark Ages version.
You start with a develope with the leg up, and then do a forward lunge and a little shim shim and a huckle buckle, and then a couple other moves.
Now,
the moonwalk.
Is there no? I was thinking moonwalk earlier. Is there a theme or some inspiration? Are you trying to convey a specific message or tell a specific story with this?
Yeah, it's the woeful, hilarious tale of Dionysius as he accompanied Hercules on the very first circuit around in commemoration of his labors.
So to some
extent, the various dances and festivities, because Dionysius didn't travel with Hercules, but he was at all the parties.
That's right.
So
That's right. He was always there. You see in the pictures. He wasn't traveling with them, but you look, you're like, good grief.
like, where did he come from? He's like a hanger-on.
He's always there. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So your story is going to have all of these eclectic elements, and it's going to be about how Dionysus's path intersected with Hercules's again and again and again, coincidentally always at a party.
Right. Crammed into a space of about 3 minutes.
I think that's great. And this is a dance for one, or that you're doing, or it's a circle dance or a group dance that you're going to get other people involved in. What is the concept? Is it one? Is it a dance?
I think at this point it's just a dance for one, but
Okay.
clearly, his goal is to turn it into more of a folksy line dance type of thing eventually.
So it's the kind of thing where he's going to go into the competition by himself, but then a year from now, when you're at back at Nafplion and people say, "Oh, I remember that," you're going to get 30 people out on stage, all doing the same thing with you.
Probably from the academy, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, I think this is a great concept. Okay.
So that's.
If all the young people want is a story, I can give them some Amazonian stories that they can adapt for their own purposes. If that all they want is a story that no one's heard yet.
Well, yeah. The young woman is very much a feminist because this is something that is possible in the era that you live in. Ironically, feminism is possible in Dark Ages Greece, whereas it's not possible in classical Greece. And the young men, because they like her, pretend to be feminists. So they're all on board with listening to your outlandish, gynocentric tales of barbarity on the northern frontier. So yeah, but they don't just want random tales. They're hoping to find someone, and you would be perfect to spend the next few days working with them on a script, leading and helping pull together the play leading up to the competition. So the question is that something that you want to be doing rather than, well, I guess you decide you're not really going to be doing the street entertaining stuff. You're going to take part in some competitions.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
do you want to be part of this thing that they're trying to draw you into? Or
sure. If they're interested in what I've got to say, sure.
yeah, they're interested. My God, you're as foreign and weird as anybody that's in the city right now. They're looking for something fresh. They're looking for something weird. And here you are wearing a set of pajamas in multicolored prints and carrying a battle axe. Yeah, you are prime fodder. Yeah.
All right. Sure, I'll work with them.
Okay. So you're going to be working with them and taking part in physical competitions. Abgros is going to take part in some Pancration competitions. Amanda's going to seek out her local guild and try to spend some time with them. Chaz is going to be working on his dance routine. And Eumeos is going to be drinking and hanging out. And if something comes up where he wants to pitch in on one of the other people's activities, he's welcome to do that.
But he's also looking for contests involving melee weapons, javelins.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
Slings.
So we'll assume all your characters are pretty much staying at the same inn. Amanda made it clear she would accept an invitation to stay at a guild house if she's given one. But we'll assume that you all intersect with each other a couple of times a day. So you come back to the inn to get a fresh python and you bump into someone. You meet for drinks at sundown at such and such a tavern. So you're going to be all off on your own doing your own things, but it'll be easy enough to leave a note at the tavern or at the inn if you need to get hold of someone, whatever. You'll bump into each other once or twice a day in the course of all your activities. So I think that's organic and that works if it works for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So the week unfolds. It's 4 days leading up to the festival. So you all find out when the javelin throwing is going to be and when the horse racing is going to be. So you find out where you need to be on what days to do the trials, and we'll do some skill checks and we'll see how well you do on your trials, and we'll see if you advance. We'll do that right now. We won't belabor it too much, but I think it's kind of fun to go through these different things your characters could do. So we will do all that. So let's just do the things that have to take place in the days leading up to the actual competition. I guess that would be the trials too. That would all be going on right now. A couple of things you notice about Nafplion. I mentioned that it was bustling. You see more uniforms here than you've seen just about anywhere else. There's a city guard. There's a city militia. The city guard patrols the streets, and you see them like breaking up fights with sailors and keeping an eye out for pickpockets. There's a city militia that you see manning the walls and the gates. There are troops from Argos. This isn't Argos, but this is the capital of the region is Argos. So there are Argive troops patrolling the streets, and there are Spartans. There is a Spartan garrison, and you learn that the Acropolis of this city is manned by a Spartan garrison. And then there are, of course, private bodyguards from all over the Mediterranean with merchants and diplomats and ambassadors, because there's every kind of consulate in this city, because it's a big trade hub. So there's big foreign presence, big military presence, big government presence, in addition to everything else that's going on here. So, okay. Why don't, Abdros, do we want to start with you and figure out how well you do on your trials to see whether you can advance in the Pancration competition. So we'll assume you go to where you need to go the next day and you register with some judges. I'm supposing the way they would do it is they would have you demonstrate forms to show that you know what you're doing. You know, they don't want just clowns or people who are unqualified coming in. So you actually can, you're able to show that you're a Greek. You're able to show that you're from Kos. You're able to demonstrate you're from the monastery of Hermes and Odios. You show your bona fides. And then they're going to match you up against some people, and you're going to do what? Like some demo matches. And if you win 2 out of 3 of them, you're going to advance. So how should we handle this? I would say for something like this, your character just does a skill check, and if you do well enough, we could say you advance, and if you don't do well enough, then you're just going to be doing something else for the rest of the week. Does that seem like a good sort of streamlined way to handle it, in that this is sort of
we can do a macro like that.
I mean, this is a theme of this interlude. It's not like the actual martial arts competition where we play. I don't want to play through every fight. I just want to get a sense for how well your characters do just in general.
Right.
Okay. So how would we do that then? Should we just, do we want to have you do 2 skill checks or 2 attack checks? Because one could be a fluke. And that is how they do trials, like for the Olympics anyway, isn't it? Don't they give everybody like 2 or 3 chances? And if they do well enough, they advance. But if they flub one of them, it just gets set aside, something like that.
Depends on the sport.
Yeah, depends on the sport. But for purposes of game mechanics, we could just do something like. Then why don't we do this? What is the thing you need to do? You need to make an unarmed attack check. Is that basically what you're doing?
If he's sparring, then yeah.
And that, is that what you want to be in? You want to be in the Pancration sparring competition?
Sure.
Okay, well then why don't we have you make, why don't we say that the whole next day you're involved in these trials, and why don't you make 3 checks and we'll see how well you do with them.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I'd suggest maybe make 1 check per level. That way higher level
characters are the ones who in practice are going to advance.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, they have a bonus anyway, but
no, but that's actually a really good idea, because you could get somebody who just, as a fluke, comes out of nowhere and ends up winning something. But that tends to make more sense. Okay, so we're only going to have to sort this out once, so bear with me. So in this case, Abdros would make 4 checks, and would that then just resolve everything for the whole week? And these 4 checks that we make are going to tell us how well Abdros did from beginning of the trials right up to the end of the competition? I guess that is a way to handle. Does that make sense to you, Brenda? Do you want to do it like that?
I think that's fine.
Okay. And then I sort of need sort of an objective standard to measure against, and we'll just use the regular DCs out of the book. So if you get a 20, you've achieved something hard. If you've get a 25, you've achieved something very hard. If you get a 30, something nearly impossible. Okay, then why don't we go ahead and have you do 4 unarmed attack checks, and that's going to represent this side quest of yours, whereby you are participating in the unarmed competitions over the trials and the final competition over the next 4 days.
Okay.
What's the highest you can get on such a check? Just
25 if I roll a 20.
25 if you roll a 20. Okay. Then let's make your checks and see how you do. Now, is there anything that would be offsetting these checks, or are they just straight checks? This isn't like when we're in tactical situation where you can use guidance to boost a check, because this really is a macro that just shows what your capabilities are, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's just a modifier and then I roll it.
So there's an element of luck that's being offset by your modifiers. It's being influenced by your modifiers. So you could do really well, you could do really poorly, but probably you're going to be getting, what's an average roll for you? 15.
15.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. This seems like a good model for this. Let's see how you do.
22, 21, 22, and 13.
All right. So if we wanted to sort of look at this as a montage, somewhere along the line, someone kicks your ass. You get knocked down, you get curb stomped by some horrible Spartan or something like that.
Sure.
But considering 15 would be your average, and you get a 21, a 22, and a 22, after what would be sort of an unimpressive roll somewhere in there. I mean, are these necessarily sequential? You know, is the 13 the last one that you got? Did you do really, really well leading into the competition, and then at the very end, that's where you got stomped?
That's the order the rolls came in.
That would kind of be the implication, wouldn't it?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just sort of consider how we want to look at this. But I would say that you went in and you placed really well, and they let you compete. And then the next day you went back and you fought again, and you ended up beating someone and advancing. And then the third day, the same thing happened. And then the final day of the competition, you end up losing your final competition. Because if you're not getting at least a 15, whoever you were fighting against did better than that. So you make a name for yourself. There are people who will recognize you. There are people who will remember you. But your name is not getting etched in the wall as someone who won the Pancration competition for year 100 in Nafplion at the Nafplion Arts Festival. So you did just fine, but are not necessarily being given a laurel crown or whatever at the end of that. So, okay, that'll work. Eumeos, what are you, a 4th level Peltast?
Peltast, what level am I? Yeah.
Okay.
4th level, human fighter.
What's the best you can do with a thrown javelin attack? I think you have what?
27.
Okay, then you have +7 on your rolls. Why don't you go ahead and make 4 rolls, And this represents you doing your tryouts and advancing through the competition. So make.
Okay. Eight.
So not so good.
27.
Very good, because you rolled a natural 20 on that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
24
Okay.
and 16.
All right. Well, I would say that the 8 would indicate that you sort of flub your first tryout and that things don't go very, very well at all. That you, because you're obviously a veteran and a soldier of merit, they give you a second chance. A natural 20 and a 27 means, I would say probably that's going to be winning unequivocally as the top person in a special category. So you're probably the winner of the javelin cast for men over 50 or something like that. So I would say that that's probably what that represents, that Eumaeus does really, 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 really well. And then he places okay in the follow-on competition and probably comes in like, you know, 3rd or 4th place. And then in the final competition where he gets that 16, he just is not keeping up with the young professional athletes. He's tough, he's fast, he's skilled, he's a retired soldier, but he's not a professional athlete. And he just is not able to place. So he ends up doing really, really well and getting a celery crown that is bestowed upon him. Did I break up there? No. He ends up having a crown bestowed upon him out at the javelin butts and gets some notoriety and gets some old soldiers buying him drinks. But he by no means wins the final competition. So not too bad. Certainly he does gain some local fame. And all the widows, the 3 old widows, all now absolutely have their eye on you. So you are an absolute prize, Eumaeus. So just so you know, Vafea, you are able to very quickly find the main guild hall. And you go into this huge, massive, impersonal guild hall of the Grand Guild of the Argolis. And most of what they're concerned with is banking, gem merchants, really high-end mercantile stuff. But they direct you to the department for lesser guilds, which is to say craft guilds. Yeah, I know, the terminology is just awful. And from the office of the lesser guilds, you are sent to a townhouse at the eastern end of town. And there is a small townhouse with a walled courtyard that has a bunch of familiar vats filled with colored liquids in them. There is a dyer's operation that is also run as the charter office of the local dyers guild. So there's a working dyer's operation, and there's a dyer man in his 40s. He's got he's widowed. He doesn't have a wife, but he's got a couple of kids that help him. And when you get there, another dyer is talking to him because he has to handle all the business for the Dyers Guild. But he looks up with his sort of red stained hands as he finishes up his business, and he says, he looks you over. You could see that he's giving you a once over, but you know that he's looking at the quality of your outfit. And he looks at you and says, "Ooh, I like that that tawny. It's a lion color, isn't it? That's a lion color that you're wearing.
It is.
That's beautiful. Well, welcome. Have you come to try to find the secret of where you can get more dye like that, or some other business?"
Oh no, I know the secret where I can get more dye like that. This is my own creation.
Oh, he's very impressed by that. He says, "Oh, well, please come in. May I pour you a cup of tea? Tell me what brings you here, and tell me your story. How I can be of service to you, Mistress Dyer." And he pours you some cold tea and takes a. He says, "I'll take a break. Let the brats wear themselves out out there finishing up that job."
Go children, perform manual labor. Yeah, so I'll just tell them about how I'm a dyer from Corinth and I'm on the pilgrimage. Have been having very many adventures over the last few weeks, and now we're waiting for our passage to Crete, and I'm spending some time in the city. I thought I might reach out and make some contacts with fellow craftsmen. So,
Okay. Well, he gives you the logbook to sign in because you are a dyer and you're a member of the guild back in Corinth. He says, it's always nice to see a Corinthian. All the tensions between our cities are, well, unnecessary, as are most of these things. But for common folk like us who just have to work through, we don't pay as much attention to those sorts of things, do we?
No, really no need to.
So he asks you if you need a place to stay, if you need anything to eat, and if you are looking for work for the next week. He just wants to know, he's sort of checking the boxes. He's got questions he's got to ask when a foreign guild member shows up.
Right. So, and I let him know that I'm happy to take him up on hospitality. I'd love somewhere to stay among other craftspeople, and obviously room and board. That would be great. And that I'm probably going to I'd like to spend a couple of days working and trading techniques and information with other dyers here, but I'll probably take the last couple of days of this week's stay off to watch the end of the festival.
So he's going to do the same. So he thinks that's a great idea.
I kind of figured that things would mostly shut down for that.
He says, "Well, it's a holiday, so there's no way around that." So yeah, okay, that sounds good with him. So he makes you welcome, and he tells you about a couple of other dyers in the city who have operations that are especially interesting. And he grabs his son, who's about 10. And sends him off with messages to some of the other dyers. And he's going to call a impromptu guild meeting for that night for anyone who wants to show up. So it's not a command performance, but anyone who wants to come can come. And he'll throw a little dinner for you. He says it's nice to be able to tap into guild funds for something official. So he throws a little dinner for you that night, and maybe 4 or 5 other dyers show up. One shows up and meets you and has a cup of wine and then leaves. But you've got a group of 2 other women and 2 other men who show up for this meeting. And you can tell that some of them are better at what they do than others. But some of them have some interesting stories to tell. They talk about how the shortage of Murex shells is really raising the price of red dye. So that's something that they have had to deal with. But there's this particular kind of herb or flower that somebody just brought back a whole load of from Crete. Very little comes out of Crete, but it makes a very, very nice yellow dye. It's much, much cheaper than saffron, but particularly nice. So you get some insights into the dynamic of the dye trade in the local area. And they're all very complimentary of your outfit and interested in how you were able to make that particular dye. And it was just a day's north of here, wasn't it, that you got the material for that dye, wasn't it?
Right. Yes. Where we were actually not far from here.
That was sort of a yellow fungus that you found growing on trees up toward Nemea.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it wasn't terribly far from here.
Are you forthcoming with that, or are you more circumspect about the materials and techniques that you worked on for that?
I let them know that it is from a naturally occurring fungus on a tree, and it was not far from here, but it is rather rare. And so it's important that if anyone does decide that they want to learn the source of it, that it cannot be over harvested, as it is a rare and probably sacred to the gods tree and growth and special locations. So something only to be used for the most rare and special of occasions.
One of them seems more interested than the others in that. But most great tradespeople are not going to go as far as a day's journey away from their town or their
Right.
shop. And especially into a wild area, a wild, unregulated area. So the one seems interested. He says, "Oh, well, I was thinking of going to Nemea anyway. I'll keep an eye out for that."
Yes,
So-
certainly. It will be along the road. Just I describe like what the fungus looks like, but I don't give them an exact location.
Well, and it was along a whole stretch. There were a
Right.
number of miles where it was growing on a lot of trees in a certain area. So anyone who hikes that area is going
to see
find
it. Yeah.
But it takes a professional dyer to see a fungus growing on a tree and say, "Oh, I need to turn that into some kind of a dye."
I bet that would turn to some real fun colors.
Yeah, and that was something you did in the very first leg of this adventure. So, well, they seem impressed with you, and he invites you to stay in it's sort of a little bunkhouse on the bottom floor of his area there that he's required to maintain for visiting guild members, and all of the other guild members you meet, the other dyers, they invite you to come by their shops. So you've got some things you can do over the next couple of days. You can visit their shops, and you can look at their techniques. And we're gonna
get very, very technical and tedious, talking about all the little ins and outs of our techniques.
But anything
like professional artisans do.
But anything on a sufficient level is fascinating. So they certainly don't find it tedious. They don't find the economics or the practice or any of it tedious.
Oh no, I'm just aware of like how people hear these things from the outside too. When I start talking shop with people after a convention, and then my husband just starts zoning out.
No, the spouse never wants to hear about Murex shell shortages. They just
not interested.
They're just not interested in that at all. Okay, well, I think we're going to be basing experience points, seeing as we like to play a skill-based game or skill-influenced game. We're going to be basing experience points on the things that you do during this week. So why don't you make 4 rolls just like everybody else has done? So you're going to be making a tool usage roll. And how do we normally do that? We give you your proficiency bonus, your best intellectual bonus. So what is that?
It's so my tool and supply usage is a +6.
It's a +6. So the best you can get is at 26. Okay, well, why don't you make 4 rolls, and we'll see just how much you get out of your experience. Because I think if we're doing something macroscopically like this, the same mechanism should be applied to all the characters if they're actively doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that first one is going to be a 23.
Okay, so you have a good productive visit with your host the next day.
Woo, a 26.
So that's a natural?
That's a natural 20, yep.
Okay.
And I'm going to blow all my good rolls for like the month right here.
That's with the young man who's interested in going to Nemea. So he actually will say that he's very forthcoming in sharing techniques with you. And he even gives you a pouch of blue dye
that's
he
exciting.
has perfected. So you've got now a special pouch of this blue dye that he's made and he's very proud of. And he gives you as a gift. So that's the narrative reward you get for rolling your 20.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. And that's not so great. That's going to be a 13.
Yeah. You clearly step on one of the female dyer's toes when you visit her the next day. And
Sorry.
she gets a 13 in her role for dealing with you too. So probably you're not going to have
we just don't click. It's just,
yeah,
it's
and
not really.
she's
It's not going
anything,
well.
she's not doing anything particularly interesting anyway. You could tell for her, it's a money job. And anyone who really gives a shit about what they do never wants to hear that from some hack. She probably won't come to the goodbye dinner for you either. And what's your last roll?
And last roll is going to be a 24.
Well, I would say that you generally make a good impression, and a lot of this is just based on, the mechanism of the guild and the hospitality that has to be shown to strangers of like interest. But part of it's that, your character is outgoing and professional and good at stuff and actually had information she was willing to share. So you feel pretty good, with the 4 days you spend just doing stuff with the guild people. So that all works well. So,
Sounds good.
Dayanara, let's see how well you do with your horse racing competitions.
All right.
So I guess this is going to be a handle animal check for you?
Let me see. Yes, I've got handle animals or athletics. Athletics, I actually have a better role in.
Then
but,
let's do it as athletics, because that would represent you really pushing yourself or whatever. So let's do it as an athletics role. I think that's...
My horse is a magical horse that I produced from an amulet. Is that going to be a problem?
The horse doesn't actually have any magical characteristics.
All right.
So if you produce the horse, it's a good question, because there are judges who are looking for this sort of thing. But if you produce your horse out of sight of anybody else and come riding in with it, it's not going to show as being a magically,
all right.
It doesn't have any abilities beyond the abilities of a normal horse.
All right.
Now, there's still somebody who might call you out on that if they ever were to find that out. So be aware of that. But the horse itself doesn't. Are you doing a riding horse or a war horse?
Riding horse.
Okay.
A light horse for racing, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, total of 20 for my first roll.
Okay, so you look competent.
Total of 19 for the second roll.
Slightly less impressive. You could see people making catty comments. Well, Amazons have fancy outfits and they've got a big reputation, but I've seen better.
Another 19. At least I'm rolling numbers higher than
Consistently?
with two digits. And the last one is, that's a 13. So.
Well, I would say that poor Dayanara is to some extent a fish out of water. And we can ascribe some of her non-stellar performance to it being, I don't know, not the best environment. Nobody wants to be mean to her. Nobody wants to be hostile. But you are as foreign as anybody could be.
How about this? I'm the flashiest rider.
You got to be the flashiest one. Yeah.
Because flashy counts at home, and but I'm not the fastest rider. So.
Yeah. There are some Numidians who are horse people, like from North Africa, like Libya. They do really, really well. The person who places second, and you notice that you come into contact with him. He sees you. You see a man with a black beard and black hair and a good-looking racing horse. Stop, and he looks at you, and he looks excited. He looks pleased. And then he gets a real dark look and looks real displeased. And then he gets sort of a neutral look and kind of shrugs a bit. And he's probably about 30 feet away. So you don't know if he's going to approach you. It's Alexander. It's Alexander, the proprietor of Megalos Elata, the owner of the farm, who was the MC for all of the events except for the one having to do with the mayors of Diomedes. So he's the one that briefed you on the rodeo that you did. He's briefed you on the herding the cattle of Geryon that you did. But you can see he has real mixed emotions. He's real pleased when he sees you, and then something gives him pause, and then something makes him set aside that pause. But he doesn't effusively walk across the field. He's standing there with his horse, and his groom is with him, and this all just takes place over a course of seconds.
Yeah. Best not to get into that.
Okay.
If I see him by himself, I might say hello, but I don't want to answer any questions about where we went after we left his farm, because I was the one who made a big point of thinking that those mares, that those horses were abominations, and then mysteriously
the issue isn't where you went after you left his farm. The issue is that you left his farm, came back to his farm, and killed 4 of the animals that were at his farm.
Did they know that it was us?
Well, we were already dead.
Do they know that it was? So okay, so we're back at dinner now on day 4, and everybody's sitting around the table in the tavern.
And I'm going, oh hey, you'll never guess who I saw.
And you're sharing a huge stuffed squid. You've got this huge stuffed squid on the table in front of you, and you're all cutting off bits of it and eating. And Abderos indignantly says, "They were already dead."
They were already dead.
Yeah, but Alexander's in town, and he knows at least that you're in town, Dianara.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my head low. I mean, technically, the horses were already dead, but we destroyed their property and some of their livelihood, and they would be within their rights to call us out on it. So let's just not go there.
Eumeos, you pick up at this point that in the Saturday game that you sat out, that the party actually returned to Megalos Alada and raided the barn that had the 4 undead mares in it.
It was glorious.
So the undead war horses that were being used as mares of Diomedes and had like a veneer of illusion put on them so that people couldn't see that they were undead war horses. Your party figured that out, and they went back the next night, raided the farm, ended up actually killing a ghoul that you found in the tunnels underneath the barn, went through a chapel of Hades, battled a ghoul, and then came up in the barn and slew the 4 horses. And then, oh my God, you set fire to the necromancer's workshop too.
We exploded it.
You blew it up.
Fire is kind of an underwhelming way to describe it.
That's right. No, you didn't set it on fire. You blew it apart. That's right. You took everything combustible and all his books, put them in the middle of the room, and then set him off with a bonfire spell on your way out, even as he came through the door to try to accost you. Well, this is his brother. This isn't the necromancer. This is the cavalryman, Alexander. Phrygistos, the necromancer, you haven't seen him yet. Of course, you won't see him.
Yeah, this.
They have other horses.
How many other days? How many more days have we got before our ship?
3 days.
3 days. All
3
right.
days. So
I'm gonna start watching my back.
So, all right. Well, you all spend a pretty productive week, and all of this is sort of happening intermixed with each other. Chaz, you're the only one we haven't done yet. So why don't we have you do your 4 rolls? Your 4, what are these, Chaz? Are these performance rolls?
Yeah, I'm thinking performance.
Okay. So let's have you do your 4 performance rolls and see just how good this dance is. Whether it's a dance that you'll discover people are still doing a year later, even if they don't know you. They're like, oh yeah. Did you see the Dionysus at the party dance? That's so good.
So the outcome I'm envisioning is more, you've seen The Big Lebowski?
No, I couldn't get through it, but go on.
Oh, really? Okay. The interpretive dance scene at the end. That's kind of what
Okay.
I'm seeing.
See,
Chad
now
do.
I've got to watch this thing.
Yeah, you do, and it's at the very end, so you have
Okay.
to watch the whole movie.
Fine.
You
For you,
can't
I'll do
just
it.
skip to that scene. You have to watch the whole movie.
Oh, I would.
And
but
indeed, it is that dance because
I-
I got a 9, a 10, a 13, and a 23.
9, a 10, a 13, and a 23. Those are your total rolls?
I only have a +4. I'm a druid, right, with one level of bard. So yeah, that's my total roll.
Well, then I would say this looks like a typical 80s loser movie montage where you just can't seem to get it right. And everybody else keeps smacking you down. And every single thing you do is pretty much a failure. A 9 is a failure. A 10 is a failure. A 13 in a competition is absolutely a failure. But somehow you manage to just keep bootstrapping your way into everything because you're a satyr and people are giving you a pass on that. And then at the final competition, you do pretty well and you place with some honorary most original dance routine, but that isn't one of the top 3 places, and it is not the one that wins the purse from the King of Crete or the personal invitation to travel to his court. So you pull it together at the end, and it looks pretty good at the end. But you know what? You're going to have a sea voyage ahead of you. Maybe you spend a little time refining your moves. I would say, it's just my opinion, but I would say based on response, you would think that this dance has got potential. That there is some potential for this dance. And it just, there's something that you haven't just got quite right with it yet.
Well, I'll make sure if no one else knows it that the 3 emo drama students know the dance.
Okay. They will learn the dance too. So they are glad to have a satyr teaching them how to do this dance. They're actually really honored. You could offer to teach them anything, and they would do it. And at whatever point you're teaching them to do it, that's after the competition is done anyway. So they've got a little more time on their hands. So last thing, who was it that was helping the students with their script? It was just you, Dianara? Okay, so tell me, Dianara, just briefly, the story you're telling them that they're using as the basis for their script and your demeanor and the tone and tenor that you are trying to convey to them.
I am going to tell them a story of a great queen of my people and how she fought off a monster, and I'm going to sort of make it an epic style of delivery.
Okay.
Almost chanted, sort of a very stylistic.
Why don't you, they're fascinated by all this.
Yeah.
I think, why don't you I think in this case, you already did your competition. Why don't you just make a roll that can, a charisma check. And do you have any, what have you got? Do you have any charisma-based skills? Do you have persuade or anything like that?
I've got intimidation. That's not.
You can play that card if you want.
No, I've got no. I mean, I've got +0 for charisma. No, I don't really have anything related. Apart
Well, either make a charisma check at +0 or actually make an intimidation check, which would say a lot for the demeanor that you're adopting with them. But make one of those kinds of checks for me so that we get a sense for the quality of the interaction you have with them in the days leading up to the competition.
We'll see. If I'm rolling as usual, they may have dumped me as a resource by now.
Maybe. They're pretty desperate.
That would be a 9. So never mind.
A 9 total?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you know what?
They thank me for my contribution and they wander off.
No, actually, they spend a couple of days where they'll take as much time as you're willing to give them. And they find you, you can tell they find you kind of odd and kind of off-putting, and that they're not really bonding with you on a personal level. But the story, just the facts and the details of the story and the origins, that is all fascinating to them. Okay, well, we are going to see how well their play does. So they're for sure first level. They're not going to get 4 rolls. They're going to get 1 roll. And they make sure you know when their play is, and they thank you. And then a couple of days later, you show up at the drama competition to see their play. And
I want to see the play too.
There are some good plays being put on too. And you recognize Vafea, one of the playwrights from Corinth that is there, because Corinth is just, like 4 days to the northeast. So there are going to be people who have come in from Corinth for this. So you can be with the Corinthian cheering section. And there are some really good plays being put on. And they're mostly very minimalist when it comes to props and costumes and that sort of thing. But then there are some that are actually being judged for props and costumes, so they deviate from the sort of Greek austerity. You realize there's a lot more of a Roman influence going on when it comes to that, and that the current generation is kind of coarse, and they're really into much more lurid kind of things. So it's not as clean and austere as a lot of Greek theater would be. But they put on their production. And it's not great. It's not great. What they try to put on, and you can tell that they probably made some last minute decision and tried to figure out what was going to go best with the judges and what was going to go best with the audience. And they put on a somewhat too farcical comedy that draws upon the themes of the story that you told. But there is buffoonery in the interactions between the Amazon Queen and the monster that she defeats. And in real life, you probably never envisioned that the Amazon Queen ended up defeating the monster by kicking it in the buttocks or any of that sort of thing that takes place on the stage in front of you. So I don't know, you didn't use the words tragedy or drama, and Greeks are very dualistic when it comes to their plays. Or tragedy or comedy rather, they definitely went with comedy, but you could tell they tried too hard. They really tried too hard, and a lot of it was over the top, and they get some cheap laughs, but it falls short, and not because of you. There's nothing you did that made it fall short. It's kind of all on them.
I mean, I tried to explain epic to them, but it didn't seem to translate to something that they could deal with.
Well, I think they understand epic. I think they just might not have been up for it, and they needed to pull something together really, really, really quick at the last minute. They come up to you afterwards, and they're all breathless. What did you think? The judging hasn't happened yet. So we don't know at this point that they don't even place. We don't know yet that they're going to summer school. But
I tell them it was very interesting. And that I couldn't follow all of the nuances of the language.
Oh, wow.
You see a severe-looking bearded man who looks like the dean of a drama school, and you hear from the other side of the stage, you hear, and you see him gesturing to the students, and they're going over and they look really, really, really excited, and then you see they look less excited, and then you see that they look sort of crestfallen, and then you see the three of them turn around and goes slinking off, avoiding eye contact with you. So the dean looks over at you and he shakes his head.
I just shrug.
She's not a student.
No, that's why he's not. He shrugs too, and
they wanted a story. I told them a story.
he kind of waves at you, but he doesn't approach you. But he just kind of waves in a friendly way. So, all right. Well, you spend a week in the city of Nafplion. We'll say that a couple of you probably went to the Palamedion, which is the casino. And the main game that is played there is craps. So you might win a little money, you might lose a little money, but we won't make that a major plot point. It is next to a temple of Tyche. A lot of people in town call it the Temple of Fortuna, but Fortuna is the Roman name for Tyche. But what you discover is a couple of interesting things, and I'll just tie some loops together for you. You learn at the Temple of Fortuna, speaking to the priests of Fortuna or Tyche, goddess of luck. You learn while you're speaking to the goddess of luck, or the priestesses and priests of the goddess of luck, that Nafplion is named for the son of Poseidon and Amymone. So you might remember Amymone is a name that turns up again and again in your adventures. She is the Libyan princess whose father brought her to the Peloponnese to escape, along with her 49 sisters, marriage to these Egyptian princes. So her father, Danaus, founded the city of Nafplion, or at least he made landfall here and established a community here. 49 of his daughters married people all around the Peloponnese. One of his daughters, Amymone, married Poseidon, and their son, Nauplius, is the namesake for Nafplion. Nafplion's son, Palamedes, for whom the hill behind the town is named, is noted, and this is real, this is not me making this up, this is noted in Greek mythology. Palamedes is known for two things. He is known as a hero of the Trojan War, and he is known as the inventor of dice. Hence, the presence of a casino called the Palamedion in Nafplion, and the rarest and most precious relics of the Temple of Fortuna, which they allow you to see, the original dice created by Palamedes, which are a relic at the Temple of Tyche in Nafplion. So you were able to see the first dice ever created by the demigod Palamedes, which are now in a special receptacle at the temple in Nafplion. So that is among the other activities that your characters are able to do that week. Some of you, maybe not all of you, but then you share your stories around the table at night. So I think that pretty much ties up your week in Nafplion. Is there anything I missed? Anything I need to know? Anything else you want to do? We didn't do your darned eggs yet, Abderos. That's the last thing. What are we doing with your
eggs?
What did you decide finally that you wanted to do with the eggs? You taking them with you? Are you finding somebody from the consulate of Kos to take care of them for you here in the city? Are you going to a monastery of Hermes and trying to bamboozle them into assisting you with this?
The only place I would be comfortable leaving them is a monastery of Hermes.
There is a monastery of Hermes. There's a monastery of Hermes and Odios, and you wear the badges of Hermes and Odios.
If there's a monastery of my order, then I'm comfortable taking the eggs there.
There's a small monastery of your order. It's located outside the city gates. So you go out the eastern gates of the city, and then you head north. And when you get up toward the intersection of the road that goes north from Nafplion and the main highway that goes from east-west from Olympia to Epidaurus, or west-east, Olympia to Epidaurus, there's a caravanserai. There's a small monastery. There's basically a traveler's village at this highway intersection. And there is a small monastery run by a half-dozen monks of Hermes and Odios, but they've got a bunk room there, and they're glad to see you. They're glad to welcome you. what do you want to pitch them on? What is it you want them to do for you?
All right. Well, I'll have a chat with the abbot,
Okay.
and I've got these eggs.
Okay.
And I tell him about how, in the process of keeping the road safe, as we do, I came upon these eggs, which would be a future threat to the roads, and so removed them. You know, it felt kind of rash to just destroy them, seeing as they're living things.
You can see he would have gone either way on this, but
sure,
okay. He'll accept what you're saying. He'll accept.
I'll leave the whole sending people to the dead thing for Hermes himself. And so you know how swampy the area around here is.
Yeah, and you told him, presumably you're talking about this is from the Lake Lerna area.
Yeah. What better kind of monk of Hermes Anodios would be one that is naturally comfortable in the water and can breathe underwater? Imagine the boon they would be to the order if they could protect the swampy areas from, I don't know, bad things.
He is so flattered because he realizes this is an honor you could have offered to anyone else. You could have offered it to the Asclepion of Lerna.
Sure.
So the fact that you're turning up on his door here like this is just fascinating to him. Why don't you make a charisma check, but make it at advantage because you and he are in the same order to see how he'll respond to this.
Some number -1. Here we go.
Well, you get to roll it twice, though, and take the best one.
All right. 17 -1 is 16.
Well, 16 is pretty good. So obviously, he heard you out, and you being a member of the same order made him listen to each of your words. And hideous as some of them were to him, he weighed them all. He will agree to take charge of these eggs and keep them safe and see them through to their hatching. And he doesn't make any promises as to what he'll be able to do in the long term, but you know he's not going to do something shisty like, you know, kill the baby lizard folk or something after they're born. You can tell he's uncertain about all this, and he doesn't really know what the outlook for the future is going to be, but he will understands that you are in earnest and that the ways of Hermes Anodios are as long and wide as the many roads that cross this earth of ours. And he will be the steward for these eggs for the time being.
Abderos is convinced of nothing less than this being a fantastic idea. He's seen lizard folk martial artists. He knows they're very capable. So he'll be back for the babies.
Well, he wishes you well on your journey. He says, may he make the road clear before you.
Thanks.
Well, the week goes by all too quickly with many, many activities on the parts of your characters. And you find yourselves standing at the wharf at the northern end of the promontory upon which Nafplion is built, getting ready to board a large merchant vessel, which is getting ready to set sail and go directly to Crete. The passage is exorbitant. It's very, very high. I don't know, like something like 10 gold pieces for one way. It is a 3 or 4 day trip. You're probably going to be 3 nights at sea. It's somewhat more than 200 miles to Crete, but this is not a galley. This is not a road ship. This has sweeps, but this is a lateen sail, which is to say triangular sailed large merchant vessel, and it's going to go out into the Gulf of Argos and it's going to go straight over open water to Heraklion. So it's not going to hug the coast and go into ports at night. It is a very ambitious and rare kind of vessel that is going to go over blue water all the way to the island of Crete. It's got 4 castles, front and back, or I guess a back castle and a forecastle, that have heavy weapons mounted on them, that have ballistas mounted on them. It's got a contingent of sailors and a small contingent of Marines, and it flies an odd flag from its mast. It has a pennant flying from the top that looks like 3 axe heads coming off of a common hub. And if anyone wants to make a history check, if any of you know our setting so well that you know what the symbol is on the pennant, you can simply volunteer that information to the party. If you don't know, then you can but it's the pennant under which the ship is sailing.
I'll try to make a history check.
Okay.
No, that's cocked. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, 16.
I'd say this is obscure enough that with a 16, all you know is that it is not the flag of any Greek city-state that you know of. It is, all you are confident of is that it is a completely alien flag in some way. The pennant of the ship that you were about to board, that you're paying to board right now, is something. But you don't know this, Brenda? You'll kick
Who's
yourself.
crewing the ship?
What's that? Who's crewing the ship? They look like Greeks for the most part, but the master of the ship and some of the officers, all the officers, are wearing kilts. They're wearing kilts and tight jackets and interesting turban-like headdresses. They're not dressed like Greeks. They look like Greeks, but they're not dressed like Greeks. They're wearing kilts and jackets.
Well, the triangular sails that's a Phoenician ship, so I'm guessing they're Tyrians, but they could be somebody else.
They could be, and you can always ask too. The bursar says, you just have to stand aside for now. We've got to wait until some special guests board, and once they board, we're going to be setting sail with the morning, as the morning tide heads out. And you hear a clattering coming down the street, and you hear people sort of oohing and awing and cheering, and you could see the crowds that are sort of massed up around the wharfs, who are mostly workers and merchants, because this is the day after the festival, a couple days after the festival was ended. So these aren't tourists or festival goers, but people are getting out of the way, but they're impressed. And you could see something coming down the main street, coming down from the main square toward the wharf. And what you see are 2 horsemen on dark horses, on black horses, and guiding between them a bull of Crete. It looks like one of the bulls that you rode, Penny, Dianara, at Megalos Alada. And you see Alexander, the proprietor of Megalos Alada, on one of the horses and his groom on the other. And between the 2 of them, they are guiding one of the bulls that you saw at the farm down the main road directly to the wharf. And when they reach the wharf, they dismount and began leading their horses and the bull up the heavy reinforced gangplank onto the ship that you're about to board. And Alexander stops and he makes his perception check and he sees all of you and he looks pleased. And then his countenance darkens a little and he looks displeased. And then his countenance neutralizes and he shrugs. And he kind of waves uncertainly as he's directing his groom and helping get this bull up onto the ship. And once they get it on the ship, they put it in a little stall that apparently was waiting for it. So they've got the bull in a stall, sort of midships, and he's spending time making sure it's properly secured. Meanwhile, you're ushered on board by the bursar. The gangplank is pulled up. The ropes are pulled off by the sailors. They push their way away from the wharf and start using sweeps to move out into open water. And as they do, they're raising the sails and catching the breeze and heading out into the Gulf of Argos and heading out for the 3-day, 3-night trip across the Aegean, the wine dark sea toward Heraclion and Crete. So, anything I need to know about your interactions with Alexander or your 3 days on board this vessel? And you can ask any questions you want at this point. It's just a matter of who you ask them to that it, determines what answers you'll get. Well, Alexander.
Do we have a cabin?
Yeah. You are given a common open area that has hammocks in it and that is set up for a half-dozen people. So there's someone you don't know who's with you. He looks an awful lot like the ship's officers, but he's just wearing normal Greek clothes and is bought passage to Crete. He nods and smiles. He doesn't seem overly outgoing, but he's a man in his 30s who's sharing the cabin that you're in.
Okay. And that was the main thing is.
Okay.
You know, do we want to talk to Alexander? I'm asking the other players. I mean, obviously.
If anybody does, it should probably be whoever wasn't along on our side trip.
I was not part of that.
Okay.
No, and I don't think Eumaeus was either.
Right.
So maybe the two of you. And just to sow a little confusion, I'll occasionally use once a day disguise self to appear somebody completely random, wander about the ship a little bit, and then revert later.
Hi. What do you want us to say to him?
You see him at dinner, by the way. There is dinner at there's a large common area in the ship, or why don't we say it's probably like a pavilion on the deck, and all the guests are summoned to dinner at a specific time after it gets dark, and he's sitting down at the other end of the table from you. He's one of the paying passengers. His groom is sleeping in an even more common area and isn't at dinner, but he's there and he's well dressed. He's wearing dark clothes. He's very much a sort of country squire, country gentleman. So he acknowledges you when he sits down. He sits at the head of the table. He's sitting at one end of the table. The first officer of the ship is sitting at the other end of the table, sort of as a host and moderator of the dinner. One thing you notice is that anybody wearing these interesting outfits, the kilts and the jackets, they're all very, very interested in the bull. They all go over and they look at the bull, and they ooh and they ah, and they reach through and they pat it. So they're all extremely interested in the bull. The ship's officers in particular are interested in the bull. But you're served dinner, the first of 3 dinners that you will have together in this pavilion on board the ship. And by the time you're eating dinner, you are clear and it gets dark. There are no lights in any direction. So either you're surrounded by lands that are not inhabited, or you've exited the Gulf of Argos, right, and that you are now out in open water. So you are might be within sight of land, but you're not in sight of any lights. There's no inhabited land that you can see anywhere near you at this point. So this is the furthest out to sea any of you have been, because any of you who have even come from coast did island hopping to get to Piraeus or Athens or whatever. This is the first ship any of you have ever been on that did not island hop. The first ship any of you have ever been on that just did blue water sailing.
If you want me to talk to this guy, what do you want me to say to him? Or should I just not?
Say hi.
Say hi? Okay. Okay.
And you had lunch with him, remember, Vathea?
Right.
You had a couple of meals with him at the farm because your party ended up doing pretty well in some of the
Right.
competitions there.
Right.
So,
So I'll just strike up friendly conversation. Oh, hi. It's so nice to see you again. You're headed to Crete too? Oh, how about that?
he nods and he says, yes, I have very important business in Crete, as you can see. So we are indeed headed there. I guess we are just fated to be in the same place at the same time. And you're headed there as well as part of your pilgrimage, if I remember.
Yes, that's correct. That is a lovely bull you've brought aboard.
He says, well,
Tell him you hope there's no minotaurs born. Ha ha ha.
I'm not going to tell him that.
do you say that, Abderos?
Yeah.
He looks at you. He says, that is funny, but I have been to Crete a couple of times now. You don't want to joke that way once you get there. They're very, very sensitive to these things. If you want any tips on what you should or shouldn't say when you're in Crete, let me know. It's a strange place and it's not altogether safe. So the things that you and your friends might be able to get away with here on the mainland, whatever those things might be, might not go over quite so well in a place that's very ancient and very dangerous.
Are we being cautioned to behave ourselves?
Well, he seems like he's giving you some friendly advice. He doesn't seem like he's trying to intimidate you or menace you in any way. He doesn't have a stake. He's not going to be affected by anything that you do as far as faux pas go. What the hell's with faux pas? So he says, yeah, that sort of humor is fine here on the mainland, but you'll want to be a little more circumspect once we reach the subcontinent.
Good to know.
Well, the 3 days are going to pass fairly quickly. I already checked for random encounters, so I know you're not going to be attacked by any sea monsters. Is there anything you want to do or ask or learn before we arrive in Crete? Because we can dispense with the voyage pretty quickly. You have good weather. You have a good warm wind coming out of the south during the day, which doesn't help you. So you have to do a lot of tacking as you head southeastward. You get a sort of stiff, cool wind coming out of the north at night. But the ship is sailing 24 hours a day. It's probably going 5-6 knots on average, but it's working its way through the sea, making good time. The Marines are vigilant. The sailors are working on shifts. There are other guests who are just lurking about. I guess nobody's inquired as to what exactly Alexander's business is. That is all very courteous of you. Yes, Dianon.
Should we assume we are all good sailors?
Should we assume you're good sailors?
As in not seasick.
Oh, you know what? We're not making, that is not a story point for this particular segment. So we're just not going to worry about that. Some of you get a little queasy. Some of you don't get a little queasy. Feeding some special slurry of herbs and stomach settling grains to the bull to keep it from getting sick is really the main concern of Alexander and the ship's officers. And there's always someone with that damn bull. When you go out at night to the rail to relieve yourself or whatever, you notice there's always someone with the bull.
So Chaz would like to just as background, try to pick up a thumbnail sketch of what Crete is like from some of the sailors, the quiet guy that's loitering in our room, just kind of asking around, trying to get a general idea and sense of what Crete is going to be like.
Okay, well, thumbnail sketch.
Who's in charge and are there any weird laws we need to be aware of that's safe?
No, that's all good questions. Well, the thumbnail sketch of Crete is this. 70 miles north of Crete was the epicenter of the Great Cataclysm. So Crete was almost annihilated when Thera blew up. It was basically the Minoan civilization in your world continued on until 100 years before the current era. And it was destroyed by the eruption of the Theran volcano. So the monarchy of Crete and all the islands that it controlled collapsed, and Crete suffered more. And you'd heard some stories like this over the years, but you talk to some of the ship's officers, and people are willing to talk to you because you're charismatic and you're an entertainer. You're kind of like a minor celebrity, you know. So they'll chat with you. You know, you're the real satyrs of Athens or whatever. So you know they'll chat you up. But you know that in the decades after the Great Cataclysm, many other communities started to recover. Crete is known to have descended into cannibalism. Crete as what 160-mile long island, a virtual subcontinent. It's immense. It's one of the biggest islands in the world. It's the biggest island associated with Greece. It descended into cannibalism, and to survive there after agriculture failed in the years and decades after the Great Cataclysm, the people there acquired a reputation for the terrible things they were willing to do. So Crete completely collapsed as a society. Crete today, at the time that you're sailing across to it, Crete today consists of the residence of a monarch who has proclaimed himself the king of Crete and issues laws and ordinances as he sees fit and controls the domain for as far as he can see in every direction. It consists of maybe a half dozen fortified foreign ports. So you're going to the port of Heraclion, which is run by the Minoan League. The Minoan League is a trade league that existed before the Cataclysm and is just now being constituted. The flag under which this ship flies, the pennant under which it flies, is the international pennant of the Minoan League. So you're flying on a merchant ship run by this trade organization. There is at Rethymnon a Roman fortified trading post on the northern shore of Crete. Heraclion is on the northern shore and in the middle of Crete, and it's run by the Minoan League. So maintained by a dozen Greek city-states. On the southern shore of Crete, there is an Egyptian fortified military and trade base. Other than the palace of the king of Crete and 6 fortified trade bases rimming this island, the rest of the island is a teeming wasteland, reputed to be haunted by the spirits of the dead and creatures mutated by the eruption of the volcano 100 years before. So basically, ghouls, kaiju, and ruins, punctuated by a few heavily fortified outposts that are established for purposes of trying to tap into the resources of the island. So why are there foreign outposts there? Because there's a lot of value in Crete. Why are they all fortified? Because periodically they disappear anyway. They get overrun or destroyed by the resident creatures. I love it. Yes. So that is Crete. Crete is a teeming wasteland filled with ruins and undead creatures and mutated monsters that has a few outposts around it. You're going to one of those outposts and they explain to you that when you get to Heraclion, you're going to travel 3 miles inland. You can only travel during the day. You can't travel at night. You're going to get to the Palace of Knossos, which is 3 miles inland. You're going to stay there. You've got to make a case for being able to go in because it is not a city. It's a royal palace. You've got to make a case for being able to get in. And if you're allowed in, then you will stay there at night, and you'll only be allowed to leave during the day when you eventually leave. So that is Crete, and that is the situation that you're going into.
Do I get the impression that there are any prejudices against satyrs or Amazonians while I'm talking to the crew?
Well, it's funny. In Greece, there are prejudices against Crete and Greece should not be synonymous for purposes of the setting that you're in. You know, they're part of the same modern nation state today, but Crete is a different thing. What you're going to is a different thing than the rest of mainland Greece, culturally, ethnically. And you learn that the guy that you're sharing a room with, he's ethnic Cretan who's never been to Crete. He's one of the families that ended up settling in other places after the Minoan civilization was destroyed. So he's coming from Naples, where his family settled. So he's an ethnic Cretan who is part of the Cretan diaspora who is invited back by the king. So the king is trying to get as many ethnic Cretans as possible to come back to Crete. And he's one of the people who's been assured a chance at a new life in Crete if he comes back and joins the Cretan community there. The king has only been ruling in Crete for about 10 years. So the Cretan monarchy was only reestablished just a decade before, or it only became known that it was reestablished a decade before. Everybody who has their trade posts are doing it under license from the king, but you know that the king's reach is only going to be so good. The Romans in particular really just do whatever the hell they want. So I think I addressed your question. So your journey continues, and you, in short order, find yourselves waking up. The ship's gong goes off. It's just right at sunrise. It's just right at sunrise, and you hear the bursar going around and saying, "We're going to be arriving in Heraclion in about an hour. So we wanted to let everybody know to pack up their things." And when you go out on deck, this is what you see. You could see a massive coastline to your south. You're coming in from the northwest, and you could see a massive coastline that stretches as far as you can see in either direction. And you can see what look like ruined communities to your right and to your left. You're on a direct heading for what looks like a fortification. You're headed for a coastal castle and a fortified port that's some miles ahead of you. And to your left, you see an island, probably 3 or 4 miles long, that has the appearance of a great fractured mirror. Its whole northern face looks like glass. It looks like the glass of a mirror, slightly greenish, but a mirror that's maybe been hit with a hammer, so it's all fractured. But you see an island, the entire face of which, miles long, looks like a great green glass mirror, fractured mirror. And as you're coming in, you could see the rear side of the island just looks like a normal island. It's a normal rocky island with vegetation growing on it, but the whole northern face of it looks like glass. So you got this big glassy island to your left. You've got the whole coastline of Crete stretching away as far as you can see in every direction to your south. And then on a direct heading toward where you're going, you can see a fortified port. And then beyond the fortified port, somewhere inland, you see a gleaming white, gleaming in the first rays of the sun, a gleaming white hilltop, a hilltop with a palace complex built on it inland from the port. And at any point, cut me off Tell me if you have questions. Tell me if you have comments. I'm just giving you the narration as you go in toward port, but let me know if you want to do anything. People start to prepare themselves. As you come in toward the port, you see that it is very, very, very militarized. The walls are all new. They are all 30 feet high. The towers are 40 or 50 feet high. There are heavy crew-served weapons mounted on all the towers, and not just ballista. You see other kinds of weapons. You don't know what they are, but they're big weapons that need 2 or 3 people to operate them. And they're strange looking weapons that are crew-served weapons, but are not normal javelin throwers. So big, expensive weapons on a big, expensive fortress, and lots of mercenary soldiers. And you realize that a lot of the people that are on the ship with you, you know, at least a half dozen of the people on the ship with you are mercenaries who are coming in to serve with the garrison. The ship comes in and makes port. And it's all asses and elbows. It's very, very, very efficient at that point. A number of people with styluses and clipboards come up, and they start making note of everything that's coming off of the ship. Somebody meets Alexander. Somebody walks up to you wearing a kilt, and the kilt and jacket, that's Cretan garb. That's Cretan national dress. Someone walks up to you, and they look at Dianara. And they look at Vathea, who's attractive, but not necessarily, they can't make out what you're all about. They look at Vathea and they don't know who she is. They look at Dianara, they really don't know who she is. They look at Chaz, Eumaeus, Abdros. They look at Eumaeus and Abdros and Dianara, and this person says they're sort of the officer, port officer who's got to figure things out. He says he's Greek. He's with the Minoan League. He says, "Are you reporting for the garrison here? Why are you here?" "You're for the brothel, I assume." He says to Vathea, "Go join the other women who are meeting up toward the head of the dock."
No, I'm sorry, you're mistaken.
"What is your business then?"
We were on pilgrimage.
"Pilgrimage?" He flips through his notes. He says, "Where are you going?" All right.
Yeah. The place with the bull.
We
The
go to the
labyrinth.
palace, right?
Yes.
Knossos, the palace.
Yes.
Says, okay.
The palace at Knossos.
There's a convoy leaving in, well, half an hour. So work your way to the southern gate and join up with the convoy. You won't want to travel alone.
Probably we don't want to miss it. So we hustle.
No. Yep.
And you know what? Alexander's going there too. And by the time you hook up with the convoy, what you're looking at is a half dozen cavalrymen, half dozen lancers. So heavily armored cataphractoi lancers. So they're wearing scale mail and have shields and have lances and are on armored horses. There are a couple of wagons with supplies, a lot of which just got brought in on the ship that you were on. So wine and cloth and luxury goods. There is the bull. There's Alexander and his groom on their horses. And then there are you. And that is the daily convoy that goes to the Palace of Knossos. It's 3 miles inland, and it goes out an hour after sunrise, or 2 hours after sunrise. So all shadows are gone. And then it leaves 2 hours before sunset. So every day it goes to Knossos 2 hours after sunrise. Every afternoon it comes back 2 hours before sunset and goes back and forth. What you see in Heraclion is that it's a fortified town. It's a trade town. It's got a lot of mercenaries. It has a lot of warehouses. Is there anything you want to do there? Anything I need to know before you quickly leave? Okay.
No, I don't. We
Sound
don't want
like
to miss
there's
this
any time for
convoy.
us to do anything.
No,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need
You've got half an hour if there's something you want to do. You have time to get something to drink or use the bathroom. You know, it's like a bus stop. So
Oh, so this isn't like a long ways away?
it's 3 miles away.
Okay,
not bad.
okay, so 3 miles. This is a bit like trying to get to the other side of the airport in time for your connecting flight. So we're
No,
gonna
I
have
mean
to-
the convoy is going to leave here
Yeah.
and it's going to travel 3 miles. The convoy hasn't left yet.
Oh, so the place where we're catching the convoy is close.
It's just
by.
5-minute walk away.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
I thought
You just walk to the other side of the town.
Yeah.
It's a fortified town with a lot of warehouses and a lot of soldiers and a lot of merchants. So workshops, that sort of thing. Where your convoy leaves, and like I said, it's got a couple of wagons full of supplies. It's got 6 heavy lancers guarding it. It's got Alexander and the bull. And then it's got a bunch of workmen with it. You see a bunch of guys with like hammers and picks and axes. And you are traveling through the ruins of a city, what was once a great city. You're traveling along a wide road that is clearly used quite a bit. It's just a beaten down path, but you're seeing ruined public buildings, collapsed houses, and these are all the houses and buildings. This is the city that was destroyed, the city of Heraclion that was destroyed 100 years before the Great Cataclysm. And you're traveling on a path through this devastation. And after about a mile, the work crew breaks off and you see them head into the ruins for whatever reasons. If there's ever anything you want to know why it's happening, you can certainly feel free to inquire. I'm telling you the things that you see. If you want to know what
Right.
they're all about, then you.
I
gotta
am
ask.
curious what they're doing, so I'll ask some of the people in this convoy.
One of the heavy cavalrymen who's very alert. They're really, really alert. You could see they're being very vigilant. He says they're scavengers. This is a whole city. There's everything that was in a city 100 years ago when the fire and the waves rolled in and destroyed it. They'll spend the day digging and coming up with anything of value that they can. They'll give half of it to the managers at the city, and the rest of it will be their profit. And they'll either make their way back to the port on their own, and we'll see them there over drinks tonight, or they'll wait for us here on the road and we'll escort them back, or we'll just never see them again, because that happens sometimes too. So anyone that you like the look of here on Crete, spend time with them while you can. And he gives you a wink.
Okay. Good to know.
So you continue onward, and your trip through the ruins of Heraclion, takes you probably just about an hour. And as you continue southward, you can see this hill ahead of you come into greater detail. You're able to make out more details. But basically what you're looking at is this. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures here to give you a sense for what you're looking at. What you're looking at is a whitewashed palace complex that has trim and details in red and yellow and blue painted. So like you could see columns have capitals that are blue or red. But it's mostly a whitewashed palace complex which takes up an entire hill. And then surrounding it at a distance of a couple of 100 feet from the base of the hill is a heavy new defensive wall with heavy towers around it. And you pass through a gateway, and let's show you a couple of pictures here. I thought I'd open the pictures that we needed. Give me a sec here. This this is the approach your party takes after you go through the major defensive walls. And what you can see is a path that's leading up to a gateway. You're going to trace the same path that this group of locals is on, somewhat ahead of you. But you take a somewhat of a circuitous path. You're standing on the road, and then it bears to your right, and then it loops around, and it comes back to the point that you can see. So there's basically a hill with a palace, completely surrounded by a moat, and then behind you is this defensive wall that goes entirely around the entire complex. And it's all new. It is evocative of a very, very ancient culture. But what you're looking at is all a very, there we go, I'm trying to get my, darn it. Does everything look normal to everybody? Can you see the picture that I posted?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all very impressive. So as we're traveling up this path, I'm just going, who built this? I mean, this is.
Well, the cavalrymen are fairly easy to talk to. They're like soldiers in the field. So it'd be like if you were like people on an observing mission in Vietnam or Iraq or something, and you're asking soldiers questions. They're mostly willing to chat with you. They say, well, this is the palace of the king of Crete, and that it's his palace. So I don't know. People from Crete must have built it.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
Are they telling the truth?
Yeah. I mean, they're just mercenary soldiers. They're on a 6-month rotation.
Okay.
They're going to get paid a lot to provide security, and they're getting paid by the Merchant Guild. And meanwhile, you get the sense that why does the port exist? Because luxury goods are being brought in and taken to the palace and traded there. So you got 2 wagons full of luxury goods that are being taken there and being paid for by the royal court of Crete. And then people are coming in and they're hunting for herbs and spices and plants that can only be found on Crete. They're digging through the ruins. They're getting licenses and concessions to do things to tap into the wealth of Crete. And because it's overrun by monsters and very dangerous, 90% of them survive their first tour, and 90% of them survive the second tour. By the 5th or 6th or 10th tour, most of the people who come here and try to make money here decide, well, this is it, I'm out. And a lot of them end up just disappearing or getting killed, and periodically one of the fortified cities gets attacked. So people are here because it is a wasteland that is just filled with all the wealth that never got taken out of it after it got destroyed 100 years ago. So that's pretty much it. You make it to the northern gateway of the palace complex. So you can tell there are several, but this is the one that visitors are allowed into. And you can see that Alexander is greeted by someone who knows him. There's a palace official who's waiting for him. They saw the convoy coming in because they're on a high point, and someone greets him. And none of you were at all interested in why Alexander is bringing a bull to Crete. And yet,
I'm interested, but I don't really want to needle this guy.
Whatever his feelings are toward you, he was not in any way discourteous or cold with you.
Okay.
So
The original bulls of Crete had to have been taken with them, and he's got the only stock of them, and so he's bringing one back for reasons.
Bringing it back.
maybe
To breed with the Cretan cows.
this could
Or
all be.
the Cretan wasteland monsters, as the case
Right.
may be.
To make more Cretan things.
After everybody who has official business here is situated. You could see that there are officials who are inventorying everything that's coming in on the wagons, and then laborers are coming and collecting it. Everybody you're seeing here is wearing kilts. Everybody here looks characteristically Cretan at this point that you're seeing. The cataphracts, the soldiers, are given an area in the shade where they can sit and hang out until the convoy returns in the afternoon. Their horses are stabled and taken away by grooms. And once everybody else is situated, a palace official comes up to your party, looks you over and says, politely, but very businesslike, what is your presumptive business at the Palace of Knossos? And he gets the sense, he says, are you all together?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks you over, he's waiting for someone to speak for your party. And what is your business here?
They're pilgrims
Okay, he...
traveling the path of Hercules, and this is one of the pilgrimage sites. So we've come to pay homage, pay our respects, and see the wonders of this palace complex.
He nods. He says, well, you'll see some of them. That's fine. He looks around and calls somebody over, a helper, one of his assistants, and he says, we're going to billet you in one of the houses here. You are the guests of His Majesty, the King of Crete. As pilgrims, your money is no good here. You will be treated with all due respect, due in accordance with the respect that you show. Please enjoy your stay. If you're interested in seeing the bulls, once you're established in your quarters, my assistant here will take you over to the stables, and you can learn more from the acrobats there, and there will be a bull dancing ceremony tonight.
Abderos wants to dance with the bulls.
Well, he looks over at you and he looks you up and down and he smiles and he says, well, you might very well be able to. I will look forward to seeing it. I usually don't make it to the ceremony that early, but I'll make sure I get off work on time tonight so that I can see the segment where foreigners are allowed to dance with the bulls.
He wants to watch me get hurt.
That's kind of what that sounds like, yes.
He doesn't seem malicious. He just seems a little amused.
I want to be there to watch you get hurt.
He didn't say that.
That's what he said.
It was implied.
He doesn't have patient defense. I do.
Right. All right.
I would actually have asked the other party members, the actual Greeks in the party. So what is it we're going to be doing here?
We're dancing with the bulls. We're finishing our pilgrimage.
Mhm.
This would have been the last stop on Hercules's.
Well,
trial.
it was one of his stops. But what distinguishes this stop is it is the first stop that Hercules made that was away from mainland Greece.
But I thought it started. Did it not?
No, he started in Tiryns. And there's two versions of the legend. One version is that the first thing he did was go to Nemea and battle the Nemean lion. The current version is that he went to Lerna and battled the Lernaean Hydra. But there are some people who say that that is a retelling of the story for the convenience of the pilgrimage route.
Got it.
But one of those two was the first. And then maybe the sixth was the Cretan bull. He went to Crete, he wrestled the bull into submission,
Right.
and he took it back and gave it to King Eurystheus of Tiryns. King Eurystheus hid in his giant bronze amphora because he was scared of the bull and refused to do anything with it. Hercules let it go. So what's the difference between the bull of Crete and the bull of Marathon? There is no difference. Once he let it go and it wandered onto the Marathon plain, they stopped calling it the bull of Crete and they started calling it the bull of Marathon.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the story. Hercules let it go and it wandered up. And then somebody else later, like Theseus or somebody, ended up sacrificing the damn thing to Zeus. So that's the story. So the Cretans, they respect your piety and they want to have a good reputation, but this is not part of their mythos. This is your story that that you're have superimposed onto their world. It means nothing to them, but they are giving you guest privilege and being kind to you. So
Which is nice.
It doesn't have to be meaningful to them.
all right, is everybody able to see the map that I just posted?
Yes.
And can you see my cursor moving around on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the route that you take up into the northern gate. And then this is the area where you're in process. And this is where the soldiers are hanging out and drinking water and taking a nap. You're then led through into a large central courtyard. You could see a big area that's like a viewing area down here. You see apartments and official buildings surrounding it. And you are taken to this suite of apartments. It's a 3-story building. And the guide gives you directions on everything that you need to know. He shows you where sleeping quarters are. He assumes you don't know what a flush toilet is, and he assumes you don't know what running water is. So he shows you how to use the taps in the sinks. He shows you how to use the toilet. And in point of fact, none of you have ever seen a flush toilet, and none of you have ever seen running water. But he shows you how to use the bathtub. He shows you how to use the running water. He tells you it's safe to drink. He shows you how to use the toilet. He explains to you how to use the leaves that are there in the little bucket next to it. And he says, if you have any questions, just tell me. I understand a lot of this is very strange to people from the provinces. But if there's nothing else, I'll take you over to the stables and you can meet the acrobats.
Sounds good. I'm suitably impressed by all of the plumbing.
This
Oh,
is incredible
I
magic.
am blown away. I want to know what the magic is.
He nods and he smiles. He says, you know, there's the story of how the Achaean warriors, when they sacked Crete back in the day, they took our toilets and they carried them back to Mycenae, and they thought they were going to flush when they got them there. And of course, it is no magic at all. It is just the magic of plumbing and the ancient technology of our people. So there are scientists among us who claim that had there not been a cataclysm, we would have been landing on the moon by now. But this probably sounds fanciful to people from the mainland. So please, don't let me bore you with my babbling.
On the moon, it's too small.
But this is sort of like, I mean, this is like a 5-star hotel. And he explains when meal times are. He says there's going to be a big dinner at sunset, and then the bull dancing ceremony will begin. So he leads you across the courtyard to one of the large buildings there, and leads you through a series. And you realize this place really is labyrinthine. You realize anytime you go into one of these buildings, you end up making more turns than you would make in a normal place. And you don't know if this is deliberate or incidental, but you realize if you were by yourself and you were wandering around, you'd probably get lost pretty quickly. But he takes you to a series of stables and he shows you around. And basically what you're looking at is a series of stables, and you see in individual 10 by 20 foot paddocks. And this is all one whole wing. This is a quarter of the palace on the hilltop. You see in these 10 by 20 paddocks, very comfortable accommodations for individual bulls. And there are at least 24 bulls. You see at least 24 bulls, each in their own individual paddocks. So he tells you the story of how in the days after the Great Cataclysm, people in Crete would eat anything. And he doesn't mention cannibalism, and he doesn't get down in the weeds with it. But the point being,
just very euphemistically says anything.
Anything.
But that included
Wink, wink.
even the sacred bulls. Even the sacred bulls. So the only bulls that survived were bulls that were part of the diaspora. Bulls of Crete who had been taken to other places. So bulls descended from the bull of Marathon, for example. So only bulls in other places survived the cataclysm, and the king has been paying to have them brought back. And they want to keep the bloodline fresh. So people like the ones who run Megalosalata Farm that have Cretan bull stock are allowed to are traded with by the kingdom so that they can bring bulls back in, and then they'll be verified and have their lineage checked from whatever means you don't know. And once they're verified to actually be a bull of Cretan descent, they'll be allowed to breed with the others, and it's to keep the bloodlines fresh. So he explains all that to you. And then he takes you to some training courtyards. They're long courtyards that have mostly young people. The oldest are instructors who are in their 40s, but there are people who are boys and girls as young as like 12 or 13 there. Most of them are teenagers in their 20s. Yes, Diana.
Where are we on the map?
And now I can't see my darn map. Let's see.
Where did it go? We can still see it.
Where are you in the map? You are down in this area.
So the stables are there too?
Yeah. So the
All right.
stables are all in this area. The training courtyards are all in this area. The layout isn't necessarily like this. This is a map of what it looked like it's 1700 BC. They've rebuilt it. So the layout is all a bit different. Actually, these could be the stables here, but there are training areas. But what you're seeing in the training areas is that they have mechanical bulls on tracks, and they're probably like spring-loaded or something, but a bull will get dragged back by some laborers and locked into place. And you hear ratchets going, and then someone will pull a lever and the bull will shoot forward 30 feet across the tracks. And you see as the bull shoots forward that these young acrobats are running up and they're leaping. And he says, pay attention, this is what you'll see tonight. But this is the young ones who are training. They'll be the ones that start off the ceremony tonight. And you'll see as the bull shoots forward on its tracks, one of the young trainees will run forward, leap, and grab the bull by the horns and push him or herself upward, do a somersault, land on the back of the bull, and then somersault again and land behind it. And some of them have their timing a little off, and they get smacked by the bull trainer as it hits them, and they get blown backward across the courtyard, and they get taken away. Most of them do a pretty good job, but they're doing many repetitions. And you see that they start to get exhausted. But this is what they do. They are priests or laity of a cult, of a bull cult. This person explains to you that they're part of an order, the order of the bulls of Crete. And this is one of the things that they do. This is part of their holy observations. So you get to watch these people training, and he looks around, he says, I have to ask, is anyone going to attempt to dance with the bulls tonight, to perform this? He looks over at you, Abderos, he glances you up and down, he says, okay, if anybody could do it, I can see you managing to do that. Yeah.
That's acrobatics. I have acrobatics. This is the only time I've ever been able to use it.
Okay, he invites you to join the queue of trainers and to or trainees, and to try it out. So you can spend the afternoon if you want working here with the young athletes, and they're glad to see you. They're honored. They will allow you to worship and train with them. If you want to spend the day with them, they'll let you train with them and eat with them and pray with them. And then you can line up with them to take part in the ceremony that night.
Cool.
So they would welcome you to join them in their day of ritual and training.
Good.
Okay. They are glad to have you. They introduce themselves to you, and they're not wearing kilts and jackets. They're all just wearing undergarments, very tight, clothing, just to sort of protect them at a minimum of modesty and protection. But they're wearing.
Abderos does this totally naked.
Abderos.
Yeah. Well, they laugh because they say, "Oh yes, that's the Greek way." They remember. So they all kind of giggle, and one of the young ones giggle, and one of the trainers explains, "Well, we'll respect your ways, but Bull tonight will have real horns, and you don't want some little bit of yourself to get left sticking to one of them. We'll loan you some skivvies if you'd like to wear them tonight."
I just have to get good at it.
Well, you know what? We're not going to make any skill rolls now. The first time you try this, you slam into the bull and you get knocked down. And then you sort of manage to sort of get the hang of what you're doing. Is there anybody else who's training with that?
I'd like to try it too. I don't know that I've got quite the right skill set, but she'd be fascinated and she'd want to try it. She might not try and perform with them, but she'd want to try it.
Okay, no, they're glad to have you train with them. So many pilgrims come and they're interested only in yakking about Hercules, or they want to, they're just in their own echo chamber. So the idea that you actually want to learn about their lore, and they tell you all about the bulls. They just give you this whole flurry of stories that's just a little overwhelming to you. And a lot of them are kids and they yak a lot. They seem good natured. Some of them don't speak Greek, so you can't understand what a lot of them are saying. But they all seem good natured and welcoming. Is it just the two of you?
Chaz will participate. I mean, he sees this as a form of like crazy dancing, so
it is.
This kind of works, and he has acrobatics, so why not?
Okay.
Seems like something he'd potentially not fail horribly at.
That sounds good. Eumeos, are you participating in this? Are you training with the bull dancers or no? Eumeos goes back to your quarters and takes a nap.
Looks that way.
We will do that. Say that he's done that. What are you up to, Vafea?
Vafea is nervous about this, but everyone else is trying it and she doesn't want to be left out. So she wants to at least give it a try in this practice.
Okay. All right. Well, you can tell that you are all trained adventurers, and you have all done things that are physically demanding under duress. So all of you have had to do acrobatics, jumping up and grabbing a tree limb and pulling yourself up, or quickly clambering up a wall, doing things like that in conjunction with fighting or avoiding somebody attacking you. You've all had to do those things. Even Vafea, who's a tradeswoman, she's still an adventurer. She still had to do all these things. This is going to be a very demanding thing. This is going to be a difficult challenge. And you're using the trainer, and sometimes it's kind of a hit, and sometimes it's kind of a miss. And you realize that it's going to be an uncertain thing when you go into the arena tonight and attempt to dance with the bulls. You're going to be able to attempt it, and there's going to be an element of luck. There's going to be an element of skill that can offset that luck. But you know it's going to be a difficult thing, and it's real clear. As one of the little girls says, she says, when you're dancing with the bulls, they don't really stop if you don't grab the horns right. They keep coming.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that's great to know.
And one of the trainers says, sometimes the gods choose to take some of our young acolytes with them earlier than we would all like. So my question is this, party, do we want to snip this here and say that this part of the adventure was your activities at Nafplion and your voyage across the Aegean to Heraklion, and then your journey inland and your introduction to Knossos, and then actually do the bull dancing ceremony and whatever follows next time? Do you want to do that and break here? Or I can go either way. But we've gone for a while, and we've actually done a number of thematic things. So I'm good with breaking at this point and picking this up, picking up the actual bull dancing in the next session. And then that will give you some time to think about that. Or do you want to do our bull dancing ceremony before we break this session?
I can't, Michael. I was up at 5 o'clock this morning, so it's a long day for me.
Well, that's fine then. So that is.
And that way we can start fresh with all our creative energy too for how we want to approach this.
That's right. Okay, then this is probably a good breaking point. So you had a good adventure in Nafplion. You had a good voyage. You learned some things about a new land, and this is the first time any of your characters has ever been not in Greece, as far as I know. So you are now in Crete, in the palace of Knossos, in the palace of Minos, in the palace of the Minotaur. You are guests of the king of Crete. You are training with the members of the cult of the bull. And after you get done with your training, you're going to go back and bathe and rest. And when we pick up, it will be at the evening feast and the bull dancing ceremony in the Palace of Knossos next time. And that is it for our session. So for anybody who is actually watching, this session's a little non-standard in a lot of ways. It's not a dungeon crawl, because that's mostly not what we do as a group. But we are trying to do some interesting things and reveal the characters' temperaments and capabilities. But we're going to cut it off at this point. And then the rest of you, if you stay on for a minute, we can answer any questions that you might have. So